everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing the year-end book challenge, which is basically 17 questions that are about all of the books that you've read the past year. And today is actually the last day of 2024 that I'm recording this. So this will be perfect to put up next week and it will be 2025 for all of you guys. So I read 74 books this year, which I thought that I was not going to hit 70, but this last week of the year was just really slow for me with travel and I wasn't feeling great. So I had a lot of downtime to lay in bed and read, and I actually hit 74 books. So very exciting. So first we're gonna start out with the most disappointing read, which, starting off on a bad note, especially because I know so many of you love this series, I'm gonna be going with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. Now, I know these books are so overhyped on TikTok, and I was just really, I think I had too high of expectations for them. I was fully expecting these to like alter my brain chemistry, and I was expecting to sob and just be so invested in all of the characters, and I wasn't invested. I half audiobooked and half read these, and because I wanted to give them both a shot before I was like, yeah, I don't really like these books. But I don't really like these books. I gave this one a 3 stars. I liked Six of Crows better than Crooked Kingdom, which is also weird because most people like Crooked Kingdom better. But Six of Crows was like a solid 3 for me. It was okay. I didn't think it was crazy. And then going into Crooked Kingdom, I was like, this is what's gonna make me absolutely feral over these books. And this was a 2-star for me, which I know it's awful, but most disappointing read of this year is definitely going to be these books. Not my least favorite read, but just most disappointing. The next question is the most underhyped book that you read this year. So this is actually going to be an underhyped series for me, which is the Age of Vampires series by the Twisted Sisters, Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is the author of Zodiac Academy, which I was a little bit nervous about because Zodiac is definitely not in my realm of books I would enjoy to read, so I've kind of stayed away from the authors altogether. But these books were actually indie published as YA, and then they were taken down, rewritten as adult books, and then put back out this past year. So there are 7 books. They're all relatively short. This is the first book in the series, but they're all on Kindle Unlimited, and this is definitely the most underhyped vampire book series I have ever come across. I don't think I've seen anyone else talk about it on YouTube, Instagram, maybe one person. And I cannot understand why, because they're so good. Everyone needs to read these. The next is an overhyped book that you read. So I didn't necessarily dislike this book fully, but I definitely thought it was overhyped, which is The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. It's definitely not my taste in book. It was a little too much smut for me. I had to skip a lot and I just did not really enjoy it, and I thought the plot was kind of boring. Did I read it in like one sitting? Yes. It's super quick to fly through, especially when you're skipping a lot, but I definitely think it was overhyped. It was fine. There was nothing crazy that happened. Everyone said the ending was going to like shock you, and no one knew how the main guy character was going to come back from that in book 2. And I read it and I was like, he can so easily come back from that. I feel like we've read this before. So I did not read book 2, so I actually don't know what happened. I won't be reading book 2. It just was not my cup of tea. A book that surprised me, this is definitely by far the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking of a book for this question, which is Fate Calls the Elf Queen by J.M. Curl. It's the 3rd book in the Elf Queen series, and I audiobooked all of them. And I actually was screaming when I was listening to this audiobook. I have never been so shocked when reading a book, and I literally can't tell you why because it will spoil everything. So please go listen. Like, the audiobooks, oh, they're so good. Go listen to the Fate Calls the Elf Queen series because you will not regret it. Next, we're going to be talking about our favorite book couples of the year. So my first one, I decided to pick a couple from a fantasy series and a couple from a just contemporary romance. So my fantasy pick is going to be Cain and Arwen from the Sacred Stone trilogy. This is A Reign of Rose. It's the third book in the trilogy by Kate Golden, and I fell in love with them in book 1, which I read like 2 years ago, and then I read book 2 and 3 this year when they came out, and each book I just fell more in love with them as a couple, and I think they're so cute and I love them so much. They have all of your classic fantasy couple tropes within their relationship, and it just was a good time. For my favorite couple in a contemporary romance, I'm going to go with Nadia and Griffin from A False Start, which is the 4th book in the Gold Rush Ranch series by Elsie Silver. It's her first series that she came out with. I actually just read this book like 2 days ago, so it's very fresh in my mind, but by far, I was so obsessed with them as a couple, and the growth that they go through in this book, it just felt so real, and it gave like a true representation of how love isn't always easy and you have to put in work, and it just didn't feel like a fake, super rushed happy ending, and their relationship felt so authentic. I was so obsessed with it. Next is favorite main characters in series. So one of them for the contemporary romance is going to be Nadia Dalka. So from False Start, again, absolutely loved her. I just thought that her character was very real and relatable. She was awesome. For my fantasy pick, my favorite female main character for sure is going to be Lydia Servos from the Crescent City series. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil stuff, but I love Lydia. She is actually probably my favorite female main character from any Sarah J. Maas book ever. For favorite male main character, I'm going to go with Sam Kiel from the Book of Azrael Gods and Monsters series. He puts up with so much, like so much. I love him and do not understand his patience, and I wish I had his patience because I love Diana, but let me tell you, that girl, especially in this book, oh, she just puts this man through the ringer, and I love them as a couple, but honestly, he is just such a solid male main character. Sam Kiel. What is my favorite author I discovered this year? Again, we're gonna do a fantasy and a contemporary author. So my fantasy author is going to be C.N. Crawford. I discovered her like middle of the year. I read Avalon Tower, Veil of Dreams, and then I just finished Hollywood Games and Vanquished Gods. Finding that I just love her writing style. It's so easy to get into, and I'm gonna look at some of her other series that she's come out with and try those as well, because so far I haven't picked up a book of hers that I have disliked. And I've been able to get into her books so quick every single time. For my romance author, I did read every single Elsie Silver book that has been published thus far. It only makes sense that Elsie is going to be my contemporary romance author that I discovered this year. This is The Front Runner, which is the 3rd book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. I think that the Gold Rush Ranch series is severely underhyped, okay? The 2nd book in the series and the 4th book in the series, oh, literally they're in my top 5, easy. Well, one of them's my number 1 favorite Elsie book, but people talk about how the first book, Off to the Races, is just like not that great, and it's definitely not her best, but it's still good. I have never read an Elsie book that I didn't enjoy. So she is definitely going to be taking the cake for that for me. The happiest book I read this year is actually the last book in the Age of Empires series, which is Devious Gods. Honestly, like, there was a lot of stuff in it that wasn't happy that happened, but I have never had a more perfect ending to a series in my entire life. I finished that book so overjoyed, just like completely unmatched. I don't know why every single book doesn't end like that, because it's all anyone ever wants. And was it stressful reading through it? Yes, but there were so many happy like little moments that happened throughout it before that stressful stuff happened, and the ending was just perfect. So yes, Devious Gods is definitely gonna be my favorite. Age of Empires was a solid series throughout this year. Now, the saddest book I read, by far, it's going to be Secrets and Masks. So this is a Hermione fanfic, and I'm just gonna let y'all know it does not have a happy ending, like at all, and it is super long. So I think my Kindle said mine was like 17 or 1800 pages. On my Goodreads, it's 1400, and It was just agonizing. It was so good. And would I do it again? Yes, I would read it again because it was that good. And sometimes you just can't have a happy ending, and that's okay. Kind of. It's not okay, but we have to do it. I'm actually so sad thinking about it right now. Snap back into it. Okay, I am nothing if not a Hermione fan, okay? And it was the saddest book I've ever read. My mother was here with me while I was reading it and finishing it, like actually finishing it. And I made her read Servant and Wings at Night while I finished it and sobbed. Just sat in bed with her and absolutely sobbed. So that was a nice fun time. This one's gonna be fun. So this is the most frustrating book that you've read this year. Now, these were books that, I mean, I wasn't super overhyped for, but I was just mad while reading them, and I probably should have DNF'd both of them, but I didn't. The first one is going to be Leather and Lark, which is the second book in the Butcher and Blackbird Ruinous Love trilogy, and I hated this. I was mad the whole time I was reading it because I just wanted it to be good, and it wasn't Butcher and Blackbird. And there were just a lot of stuff in this. Like, obviously we know what the series is about. It's about serial killers. So there's gonna be graphic, like gore, uncomfy things, but I didn't like a lot of stuff that was in this, and it wasn't weird in Butcher and Blackbird, and it was weird in this. So, not a fan at all. And the next one is Unsteady. This is a ice skater hockey romance, and I have never read one before this, and I don't know if I'll ever read one again because this was just a very toxic relationship, and it had all of the good tropes in it, like the... Did it have good tropes in it if I can't even think of them? Had the panic attack trope and like the comfort trope, and that was nice, but their relationship in general was so toxic and I just didn't like it. In the end, it ended up being okay, but throughout it was not okay, and it was so annoying. All right, we're halfway through my stack of books, guys. So next is gonna be favorite covers of the year. So I have two. The first is going to be the Heartless Hunter Crimson Moth Fairy Loot Edition. I just think that this is absolutely stunning. I'm gonna show you the inside too, because, ooh, look, she's so pretty. I am just obsessed, and I'm obsessed with this book. So that was one of my favorite covers. Now, the next actually didn't become a favorite cover until I finished the book, because I then was looking at the cover and realized all the little hidden things that are in the cover that you really don't notice when you haven't finished the book, which is anathema, I don't know how you say it, but it's glossy, so it's kind of hard to see. There are a bunch of little hidden things in this cover that you won't understand the significance for until you've read the book, and I just loved it. This was the first horror-esque book that I've ever read, and was I kind of terrified halfway through it? Yes, absolutely, but it was good. It was fun, and I'm excited for the second book. Next is books that I haven't stopped thinking about since I read them. So these are books that just like randomly will pop up in my mind throughout the year. One of them actually is also going to be Heartless Hunter Crimson Moth, okay? This book left on a crazy cliffhanger, and I am so excited for book 2 to come out. It comes out in February, which is so soon. So very excited about this. We have like less than 2 months. And the next one that I haven't stopped thinking about, which I know is a controversial one, some people did not like it, some people loved it, which is going to be Quicksilver. So I have this cover of Quicksilver, and this one especially will randomly pop into my head at times because I'll be reading or listening to books or watching TikToks where people are talking about tropes or certain tropes come up, and it'll remind me about something that happened in this book, and then I just start thinking about the ending and all of the crazy plot twists that happen at the ending. I know some people said it moved like too fast at the ending. I thought it was perfect. Like, I truly didn't think that it could be any better, and yes, I'm a Quicksilver fan, and I am excited for book 2, and it doesn't come out until I think August or November. It's a long wait, okay? A long wait. So I'll for sure be rereading this one. That's a question that's about to come up, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be rereading this one before that comes out, probably in the audiobook, because I've heard it's amazing. Next is an unpopular book that I enjoyed. So that is going to be Till Death by Miranda Lynn. This book gets so much hate, and I don't know why. I actually cannot understand it because I absolutely loved it and ate it up. I did listen to it on audiobook. It is a duet narration, which means every time that the male character is speaking, whether it's in his POV or her POV, it is that voice actor's voice, and then vice versa for the girl. And it was so well done, guys. I literally loved it so much, and I can't wait for the second book, which is coming out in March. But for some reason, people don't like this book, and I don't know why. Maybe it's different if you were reading it. I wasn't reading it, I was audiobooking it, but I think it's a phenomenal audiobook. And if the same voice actors do the second book, I'll probably audiobook the second book because it truly was an unmatched experience. Well, next to the Elf Queen series. I think Elf Queen series is always going to take the cake for my favorite audiobooks. Next is going to be a book that I thought I would love, but I actually did not love. I actually very much so disliked. And I feel so bad because I actually got sent this book by the publisher. But that is going to be Lightlark and Nightbane. I think this would have been so much better if it was written as an adult book and not a YA book. I think that there were just too many adult-centered themes happening in Lightlark and Nightbane that it was like we tiptoed right up to it and then tiptoed a little bit too far over the line for what's okay for a YA book, and then we just stopped. So it was like you were kind of like, wow, I can't believe this is happening in a YA book, but then it didn't actually happen. But it was also obvious that it should be happening or was happening, and it just wasn't on page. And I just don't enjoy when YA books are written like that. So this is, I guess, an upper YA series, but I think it just really towed the line a little bit too much for me. And that made me angry while reading this book. And I thought I was going to love them, but I didn't. And I decided not to read the rest of the series because she just announced that there's going to be 2 more books instead of just the completion of the trilogy. And I don't really care enough. So the most unique book I read this year, one of them is going to be an audiobook that I listened to, which is The Unmaking of June Farrow. I really enjoyed this book. It wasn't anything too crazy, but the storyline felt very unique to me in what I typically read. It's kind of like time travel, and it was more just general fiction with like a sprinkle of historical fiction aspects into it, but it was a really good story and I really enjoyed it. But it was not what I typically read, so that was unique. And then as for my fantasy romance genre, the most unique book that I read is House of Bane and Blood. This is kind of like a Peaky Blinders Grishaverse mashup, but it felt so unique to all of the other fantasy books I read. It just, the storyline and the plot twists and all of the conflict that happens in this book was not anything that I've read before, and I really, really enjoyed that. I also tabbed it. It was great. Absolutely loved House of Bane and Blood. Next, we have books that I would reread. One is Quicksilver, as I said, but for the other ones, I'm just going to tell you what books I did reread for the year, because I did reread 3 books. One of them was House of Flame and Shadow, which I'm not going to pick up again because it's at the bottom of all these books down here. And then I did reread From Blood and Ash and Throne of Glass, just these 2 books, not the whole series, because I started going to a trivia book club here in Nashville, and this was the book picks for that. So I had to re-listen to them on audiobook so that I could hopefully win trivia, and I didn't win trivia. The questions are actually insane, but it's so much fun. I enjoy going every month. Next month is Iron Flame, which I'm going to not reread. I'm just going to reread my tabs because I kind of tabbed that book up like crazy. And the last question is books that I did not get to read this year that I wish I got to read. So I actually have 4 books on this list because I feel like this one's easy because I have a nice big bookshelf full of books that I haven't read. Well, I've read a lot of them. I will say I'm not too bad when it comes to the physical TBR. I am pretty decent about actually reading books on it. The first is going to be the rest of the Defy the Night series. So we have Defend the Dawn, which is the second one, and Destroy the Day, which is the third and final one. I read Defy the Night. It was the first book that I read in 2024. Absolutely loved it. But once I finished it, House, Flame, and Shadow came in. So then I read that and I never picked the series back up again. But there's no reason that I shouldn't have because I literally was obsessed with book 1 and was so excited for these. So we're gonna read these in the new year for sure. Then I have Belladonna. I actually started this, was really, really enjoying it, and then I slumped real hard and I never finished it. So Belladonna is also going to be on the list of books I want to read next year. I will probably wait till October to read this. It is spooky vibes. We are not in spooky season. So if anything, I might read it at the end of winter, depending on how the TBR is looking. But right now, I don't think I'm gonna. I think we're gonna wait till October. And the last one is one I also did start but I didn't finish, which is The Will of the Many. And I really want to complete a epic fantasy sci-fi type book. And this is the one that I would like to do. So I'm like 50 pages into this. I really, really was enjoying it, but I paused because it's also overwhelming. And then I was okay with pausing because I realized that apparently there's a crazy cliffhanger in this, and book 2 is supposed to have a release date for 2025. So I'm gonna wait to read this until we have an official release date so that I can mentally prepare myself to have to wait for the next book to come out. So loving it so far though, truly. Every time I pick it up, I am like super engrossed in the story. But once I stop reading it, I just am not going to pick it up again because I know I think that's all I have to say. She thick. That is going to be the end of my 2024 year-end book tag. I read so much this year and it was great. I actually read less than I did in 2023, which was a goal of mine. I know that's weird, but I did not prioritize myself or many things in my life, and including hang out with people. I would literally tell people, I'm not going to hang out with you because I need to finish this book, and that is not a good excuse and not healthy. So I read like 32 books less this year than I did last year, and I think that 75 is like a good number. So that'll probably be, I'll probably hit around 70 next year too, but we'll see. Who knows what type of reading vibe I'm gonna be in. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!